Good morning, sugar. How many of us put sugar in our coffee? Or reach for orange juice first thing in the morning, only to follow up throughout the day with soda and other processed foods? That would be most of us. If we're being honest with ourselves, would any of us know how much sugar we actually consume in a day? What effects does sugar actually have on our health? And what recourse do we have? Today I'm going to present to you factors contributing to the rise of consumption in sugar, studies showing the devastating effects of sugar on our health, who is most at risk, and what we can do to make changes going forward. Robert Lustig, Laura Schmidt, and Claire Brandis, doctors from the Center for Obesity, bring us facts to keep in mind when discussing sugar. Over the past 50 years, sugar consumption has tripled worldwide, and sugar meets the same 4 pillars in the health community as alcohol. Let's discuss first globalization. Research by Tracy Kulin introduces us to the roots of the rising spread of our sweet suspect around the globe, citing trade liberalization and greater preference for Western food. What does this mean? Basically, it means that processed food is cheaper to make, has a much longer shelf life, can be sold for less, and distributed all over the world. Because of this, lower income regions and families consume more processed foods because it's cheaper and tastier. America is no exception to this rule. Let's look at the effects on health. With many regions consuming an additional 500 calories a day just in sugar, we gain weight. With the constant surge of glucose in our bloodstream, which we are not biologically designed to handle, our body struggles to keep insulin in balance. After a period of time, we become insulin resistant. This is the type of obesity and illness we will be discussing today. Sugar is a direct factor in the increase of diseases resulting in metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is a combination of alterations to your metabolic system that increase the risk of high blood pressure, also known as hypertension, excess fat around your waist, higher cholesterol, heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and cancer. I'm willing to bet you either have or know someone who has these conditions. Let's discuss them in detail. Type 2 diabetes occurs when your body can no longer regulate blood sugar levels and they become toxically high. It's estimated that type 2 diabetes lowers life expectancy by 10 years, can lead to kidney damage or failure, blindness, and in extreme cases, loss of limbs or even death. Heart disease is when your blood vessels become more narrow or blocked. This can lead to heart attack or stroke. Stroke occurs when blood flow to the brain is cut off, most likely by our narrowed or clogged blood vessels. Stroke is far more preventable than most people think, and they often result in permanent disabilities and death. Cognitive decline can occur naturally, but it's exacerbated by our body's natural responses to the higher glucose levels. This will affect your memory, language skills, reasoning, and judgment. Cancer. While several forms of cancer can derive from other causes, consider the relationship between cancer and sugar. Sugar is essentially Miracle-Gro for cancer cells. Many of these complications can be avoided or reduced with reducing sugar consumption. Let's take a look at the psychological effects. Several physicians in Turkey did a study regarding psychiatric illnesses derived from insulin resistance in children. The study evaluated 88 children and adolescents with insulin-resistant obesity, of which an astounding 40% had some type of psychiatric disorder. Anxiety disorder was the most common, but ADHD was also present. Of course, these children are also predisposed to chronic illness related to metabolic disorders, but what is most concerning about the mental effects on children is that their brains are not yet fully formed. They have not progressed through all of their metabolic stages, and they are already experiencing problems directly related to the consumption of sugar. In keeping such serious health complications in mind, let's discuss some of the suggested interventions. If you remember Dr. Lustig, Schmidt, and Brandis from before, the solutions they recommend are just short of prohibition, such as taxation and intervening legislation. These doctors cite Canada as already having legislation in place to place higher taxes on sugary products. These taxes are similar to the higher taxes on tobacco and alcohol. California also has legislation restricting the advertising of sugary products to children. A study done on the American Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, commonly known as SNAP, or referred to socially as welfare programs, suggested that incentives be placed on whole foods, fruits, and vegetables when using SNAP funds, simultaneously with restrictions on processed foods. This would be an extension of existing restrictions on the SNAP program, as alcohol, for example, is prohibited to purchase with these funds. However, as we know, whole foods and organic foods are often more expensive than processed foods. This could further restrict the availability of foods to those who are already in need. Some anti-poverty advocates have expressed that restrictions like this could send the message that the indigent are not capable of making healthy food choices, adding insult to injury. Hopefully, I have captured your attention by presenting real dangers in the consumption of high amounts of sugar consumption. Hopefully, we'll all be more inclined to take steps to reduce our sugar intake and take a stand against so many preventable health problems. I have some ideas, so let's start with ourselves. First, the American Heart Association recommends 150 calories or 37.5 grams of sugar per day for men and 100 calories or 25 grams of sugar per day for women. With that in mind, try to remember to read the labels on your packaged food before you eat so you can better be in control of how much sugar you're consuming in a day. Good rule of thumb, if you can't pronounce it, don't eat it. Although I know it's difficult, try to restrict the amount of sugar consumed by children and help them create palates for healthier foods. While placing additional taxes on food may seem like it does more harm than good in the immediate future, perhaps support your local governments in providing healthier foods in schools and employee vending machines. Support restricting advertisements for processed foods to children, similar to tobacco and alcohol restrictions on advertisements. On a federal level, support and encourage legislation that requires stricter labeling laws and altogether substance restriction on packaged foods. We are well aware that a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. We have to acknowledge that we are consuming exponentially more than a spoonful of sugar per day, and it's literally killing us.